Hello everyone, my name is Oladele Ayorinde. I am happy to welcome you to the Organ House Concert and Seminar Series today. Again, thanks so much for joining us today, and thanks for your commitment to this initiative and this process. Thank you so much for always being there for us and joining us on a weekly basis. Thank you so much. So today's edition is quite spectacular and in many senses, because the topic and the focus of today is quite pertinent to issues that has been on ground for many years and that we experience every day, particularly for those who work in the creative and cultural industries, particularly music. And when I say music in this context, largely this concerns issues around art music distribution, consumption, and issues around sharing, borrowing, and the like they say, the technical word is the distribution, production, and execution of artistic work in music. So again, this is the Organ House Concert and Seminar Series. It's a space for creative experimentation, research, and artistic exploration that brings together researcher, scholar, music educator, and the professional, in engaging issues that are quite pertinent to both Nigeria, Africa, and the global, discourse, and providing perspective to ongoing issues in society, not only in Nigeria, Africa, and beyond. So again, you are welcome to the Organ House Concert and Seminar Series. So today's edition, as mentioned earlier, is quite important for all of us, because for creators, content creators, composers, scholars who publish, works like articles, books that people use on a daily basis, the issues of copyright is central to this work. The success of our work is largely dependent on how we are able to mitigate, issues of circulation consumption, particularly the idea of fair use that actually pays both sides, the content creator and also the user, for social development in Nigeria particularly. So today I am having two important personalities with me today, and I'm so excited to have, to welcome them. So I'm going to place the mic, I'm going to hand over the mic to them to introduce themselves, because I think that's our model here. We give people that space to express themselves, to introduce themselves, and tell us what they are working on and what we need to know about them. So I'm going to go to my right, first of all, to welcome Mr. Charles Amudipe. We call them Ratope Amudipe. So you're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Once again, like Ayo said, I'm Charles Olutope Amudipe. I work with Nigerian Copyright Commission. I'm a lover of music, church music. I've been directing choral music for some time now. And the issue of copyright is something that is very dear to me. And I believe that at the end of this session, we will have been able to pass one or two things across for us to learn.
Thank you so much, sir. So let's go to my left. We have our HOD. So let's hand over to him. Let's know you, sir. Let's see, let's get to know what you are busy with.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ayo. Thank you, our listeners online. My name is Bayo, as you've seen it. I work with Mountaintop Universities. I'm a scholar, really. I'm an ethnomusicologist, and I've been a researcher per se on African music. But for the past 4 or 5 years, I've lectured music business at both undergraduate and postgraduate level. And because of interest, I've taken keen interest in issues of copyright, which I believe needs attention. And, that's what I do now, taking interest in issues of copyright as part of music business. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you so much. Again. So let's move into the process and let's quickly, dive into the big, the agenda for today and what we are here for today. So I'm going to start. We have a few questions that will help us navigate the set agenda for today. The first one, I'm going to now. This is how we are going to manage that. So we have, as mentioned earlier, we have two personalities, experts that are prepared to help us, navigate these issues today. So we have up to 5 questions that will help us navigate. So I'm going to take them one by one, then I'm going to pass the mic. Again, this is a dialogue. It's like we always say on this platform. It's a dialogue, it's a conversation, we share ideas one way or the other. Yeah. Okay, so the first question here is intellectual property right in Nigeria, issues around intellectual property right in Nigeria. So I think we need to know, is intellectual property, what is intellectual property right, in Nigeria? But before that, there's a point that I really also want us to also explore in this sense, in the sense that is Nigeria is signatory, to any international bodies like the World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, or treaties like those of the Berne Convention, that have been regulating copyright, intellectual property across the world, because also across nations there are signatory, there are inter-country, inter-regional, collaboration, For instance, if you have a copyright work in Nigeria, you can also, get your work can be honored in South Africa or Ghana or even in the US. So is Nigeria part of these treaties? And that's the second layer. The first one is, what is intellectual property rights in Nigeria? So I think we should start from our Uncle Topper.
Yes, thank you very much. Intellectual property, simply put, is just another tangible property like you have for real estate and some other properties you can think about. But in this context, intellectual property is a creation of the mind. Creation of the mind, those things that you are able to conceive, those ideas you are able to conceive, and bringing them out in a tangible form that you can feel it, you can see it, you can hold it. And after development, what comes next? Don't forget, the first phase is the idea you have in your head, then bringing it out in a form that you can feel it, you can see it, you can hold it. So when you bring it out in that form, then it becomes a property. So an intellectual property now comes in about 3 parts. In it, you have the copyright, you have the trademark, and you have the patent. So that's basically what intellectual property is, simply put.
Any?
I don't know. I think Mr. Mulipe has done it, but it's like I used to tell my students, it's the property that is available to a creator, a product of your intellect. In virtually all, particularly in case of music, it is unseen before it transmits to seen. And why it is called a property, like Mr. Mulipe said, it's like when you compare it to a house, it's a property. Then this is a product of your intellect. Then you must have rights on it. You must enjoy certain rights. So intellectual property is a right. As a product, like I said, of your intellect. So it could be music, it could be architecture, it could be fine art, it could be poetry, or a product of your intellect, a creation of your intellect, creativity. That's it. From your thinking, this thing has come out. That's the basic word. That's what. There are so many other layers. Copyright, patent, etc.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we, as mentioned earlier, the idea, we explore this simply to create the context, and because many people might not understand or be aware of what this means. So now that we have briefly explored that, let's move into today's business. So the first one again from today's business is what is copyright? What is copyright on the one hand, and copyright law in music in the Nigerian context? And by extension, okay, I think let's talk about that. What is copyright and copyright law in music?
So before Mr. Amunuga takes that, there's something with me that you asked whether Nigeria is a signatory to. And I think I will agree with you.
Yeah.
Where Nigeria is a signatory to WIPO and to the conference.
We have more. We have the Bread Convention. We have the Rome Convention.
So
we have the Marrakesh. We have the Paris. But basically, each of these treaties are targeted towards
a specific
and a particular interest. Some for music, some for broadcasts, some for artistic works.
Okay.
Even the one I mentioned at Marrakesh is for the visually impaired people, which is the latest one that will allow the visually impaired people to have access to copyright works, whether in terms of books, in terms of audiovisual works, and all the likes. So we have these treaties, each of them targeting particular interests. Okay. And Nigeria is signatory to virtually all of them. And for 2022, the immediate outgone president actually signed.
Okay, what is now the 2023 Act?
Yeah,
signed in March. I think it was signed in March.
17th of March last 2023. So, and also most of these treaties have been domesticated. Over the years we have signed into them, but we've not had the opportunity of domesticating them. But now, shortly before the last administration wound off, Nigeria was able to domesticate some of these treaties. So it's a very good one for us. The only thing that remains now is for us to take advantage of these treaties.
Thank you so much. Okay, so to our colleagues and friends again, yes, it's music discourse, but in a different way today. When we talk about value chain or cultural production in the industrial or in the industry terms, issues around supply, consumption lay the foundation for what we do. So today, in other words, what we are exploring is what we call cultural policy and management. That's what it's called in scholarly terms. Under that, we have music business, we have music industry, we have issues of value, we have issues, different ideas around policy that guide how cultural products, artistic products are produced and circulated and consumed, and the kind of value they generate across society. So we're talking about cultural policy and management too. And in that, we're focusing on copyright law. So let's go to that question. Thanks so much for that wonderful, introductory note, and laying the context for us to understand where we are coming from and where we are going for today. Okay, so what is copyright and copyright law in music in the Nigerian context? Let's start from that.
People will have different definitions for copyright. But if we are to put it in a very simple way that everybody on the street will understand, is that copyright is the right that the creator of a work has on that work. That is, the controlling any doing on that work. So that at the time you create your work, your right starts to exist. And what are these rights? The rights of reproduction, rights of distribution, rights of commercial, exploitation. So that is copyright, simply put. You can now, in another way, to make it have legal sense, that is the legal right that an author or a creator of a work has in that work to control the doing or the exploration of that work.
Wow. Thank you so much. Any scholarly attempt to that?
Like Mr. Amurika said again, it's just the right. We said we define the intellectual property as the property that's the product of your intellect.
Definitely.
Now, if this thing comes from your intellect, you should enjoy some benefits. Benefit from it to sustain you, economic benefit, moral benefit. And that is where copyright comes in. Copyright now says the right available to you over the right available to the creator of the work over its work. Yes, this is the right available to the creator of this work over its work, although it is not in perpetuity. It is limited to a certain period, and there are conditions which I believe as we go on we might begin to explain.
Of course.
There are conditions that you must meet before you actually enjoy the right. The simple definition is the right available to protect the creative outputs of author by granting them exclusive right to control the use of their creation for a particular period as specified by law. So that's it.
Okay, then I think that's thanks so much for that explanation. Thank you. There's another layer to that question which I really want us to also briefly explore, because we're talking about copyright and copyright law in music in Nigeria. The question is, what you explain now perhaps are shaped or informed by the 2023 copyright law, 2022 act. So, but the question here is how, in the last 30 years or the last 40 years, how has copyright law worked or have worked in Nigeria, particularly in the last 30 years, like I said? How has it worked? How do we get to where we are?
Coming from the angle of being a regulator, yes, the copyright subject in Nigeria is something that I would say has evolved. And not until recently, let me say in the last 10 years, that we as a people are coming into terms with what copyright is all about. Even though before then, the laws have been in existence. The first one was 1960.
1960.
Yes. So over a period of time, the decree came, the act came, and reviews have been coming every now and then. The last one took almost like 12 years.
12 years.
Yes. So the Nigerian people have actually come to terms with the issue of copyright. But that is not to say that the subject itself is dynamic all over the world. And it comes with its own challenges of interpretation. You understand? And it's at this point of interpretation that you have people contesting with what should be, what is on ground, and what is anticipated. You understand? So over time, the government at the level of administering and enforcing the law have tried to enlighten the people, because
part of the core mandate in the law is the enlightenment of the people of the existence of this law. Okay, so over time, yes, I would say Nigerians have actually come to terms with the law, but practicing what the Lord says is another ball game entirely. Let me drop it there.
Wow. Okay. I have something to say, but let's take it to you. Let's from scholarly perspective, particularly from the research world. Has any work been done, or how has research has conceptualized this history and this what Dr. said?
Okay, let me just add to, like you said. I think let's even before we have the first copyright law in Nigeria, as in law, copyright actually has been part of and parcel of our traditional life. Because when a traditional African man is performing, there is this tendency to acknowledge your elders. The Yoruba context, if a Juju man wants to play, you say Iba Sani Ade, Iba Obe, Iba Dizwaju, Iba Seyin. That's actually the first concept of copyright in the traditional setting. Now, after then, we have the European, the colonial masters, because that's the first copyright law that we used in Nigeria that was applied to our situation was the colonial force imported from the British. But that one failed. Why? Because it did not address our peculiar situations and circumstances. Basically, our music is built in oral tradition. You are written that, so it did not. Before we now go to 1970, I think I'm right. Yeah. 1970 was it 1960 or something like that,
yes,
or 1970, 1988, 2004, and it has evolved over all the time. Some of these things failed because of the provisions in the act, maybe penalty, something like that, until we got to 2004, and that was 2004 stayed for almost, I think, 11 years. 9 years or something, 2004 to 2023, before we got to where we are. So the issue is that it has been part of us. We are used to it, and like every other law, it has been successful, and it has its own demerit. But what is important is that we continue to roll on this thing now. If I'm allowed to make a passive comment on the 2002, that's the latest one. 2022, very comprehensive. If you read it, you will, because it was able to capture the lapses, the inadequacies of 2004. So that's how law has been. So I'm not sure. Our problem may not actually be with the laws. The copyright laws have been adequate. Our problem, maybe if we get there, we begin to look at the problem. Our problem has not actually been the war. We've had the best of law. Like we established at the beginning, we have treaties all over the world, and that makes it functional. And NCC has always, Nigerian Copyright Commission has always been there, charging the duty appropriately. I can remember in the days of Alaba market. If not for NCC, it was always bad. It was a war.
Okay, I think we are still going to get to that, but definitely.
Maybe I should add something to what Doctor said with respect to the 2022 law. See, like every other law governing human race, by training, I'm made to know that the crime will always be a step ahead of the law. Sure. The day the law is ahead of crime, then there's no basis for law anymore. So over time, our laws have been evolving based on challenges. I can tell you this off record, although people are listening. By the time this new law was being signed, for us in the Nigerian Copyright Commission, we have already seen almost like 3 years behind already.
We already
that okay, this session is almost becoming obsolete. especially when you look at the new area, the
Evolving.
technology.
AI has evolved.
Yes, AI. As at the time we are putting this into print, nobody was thought about AI.
Yeah.
You understand? So the technology that came into this, take down the internet and all the rest, there are new innovation into this law. So if you leave this law as it is in the next 5 years, you want to throw it in the dustbin. And to confirm what he said, it is not actually the law that is the problem. It is we, the people that interpret this law, that this law is written for, that are actually the problem. The way we interpret to suit ourselves.
Well, I think I quite appreciate that perspective. I think one thing that Dr. Bayo mentioned earlier is the local idea, the local logic of copywriting. Yes, the idea of copyright itself is a modern nation-state project. It is quietly embedded in the notion of modernity. Of course, from the West and all this kind of globalization, which is always the elephant in the room. So the idea of having a unified global market and we protect the same law that's applied in somewhere can be adapted here and there, of course. Yeah, but like you mentioned, the local approach is people now responding to the law. That's another, another case, on its own, because every society has their own local dynamic. And the Nigerian context, I'm sure we know in the last 50 or 40 years, issues around how people borrow, idea of sharing, which also goes back again into our indigenous sense of traditional idea of sharing. Sharing, we'll get to that. But there's something that I think we should also clear before moving forward is how long does copyright work last in Nigeria? So what is that copyrighted?
You are talking about duration.
Duration, yeah.
I think is universal to an extent.
Okay. In Nigeria, how many?
Like I say, it's universal.
Yeah.
For musical, artistic, literary works, 70 years after the death of the creator.
Wow. 70 years.
70 years except for photographs. Musical works, artistic work, literary work. 70 years after the death of the creator.
Wow.
You understand? Then audiovisual works, maybe 50 years.
50 years
after
for audiovisual.
Yes. So that is. Now, it does not mean that if I create a work and 70 years after I'm dead, that doesn't mean that my work is gone.
Okay.
My work might not even go to public domain.
Oh, okay.
Are you getting it?
Does it mean that it's transferable?
That is the issue of the intellectual property doctor was trying to explain the other time. You understand? It has become a property that you can transfer.
Transfer. Okay.
Just like in testament or in a will, you can.
Yeah.
For instance, let's take the work of this Messiah by Handel. That work is not in public domain.
Okay.
How many years has Handel departed from us now? But that I'm aware that work is actually bequeathed to an orphanage in England. So these people will have the right to continue to manage that.
To manage that work. Okay.
So that's to say that this is just a guide.
It doesn't end there.
It doesn't end here. So if after my death, 70 years after, and when I was, maybe at the time I was living, I had bequeathed or transferred that particular work to my heirs, then that work continues to enjoy protection and continue to enjoy every right.
Wow.
Available to
the work while I was on earth.
Wow.
So that's the way it works.
Oh, that's great. So, friends and colleagues, I'm sure some of you are joining us newly or some of us are joining for the first time. This is the Organ House Concert and Seminar Series at Mountain Top University. at Department of Music, Mountaintop University. The space is created for interrogation, experimentation, research, and, as mentioned, a free space indeed for dialogue, critical engagement with issues around music, music performance, musical instrument, indigenous cultures. So, in conversation here at the Organ House and Seminar Series, we have scholars, we have professors, we have practitioners as well. So, it might be your turn tomorrow to sit here. You could be you can be a collector, a performer, a composer. So, that is what we are. Like today, we are having one of the policy manager from Copyright Commission. Then we are also having a scholar in conversation with him. This is what we do here. We bring the scholarly perspective in conversation with the professional and with the policy perspective. Yeah, don't forget, this is 21st century. We make research meaningful to the well-being of the society, the nation, the continent, and the world as a whole. So thanks for joining us. So let's go back to the concern of the day and what we do today. So then I think that's quite insightful that copyright can be transferred as a will. Wow. You see?
It's a property.
It's a property. Okay, it's good to ask questions, you see. Although asking the right people, I think, is the most important thing. Asking the right people, the right questions. So I'm happy that we are asking the right people, today. So then let's move further in this process. Let's move to the other. Then how do creatives, composers, artists, and content creators who want to copyright, who want copyright protection on their works go about it? I mean, how can they seek copyright protection for their works?
Thank you very much. According to the nature of copyright itself, your right starts to exist the very moment you start to put that idea in form.
Wow.
Don't forget, when I was defining copyright, I mentioned this. The copyright does not protect ideas that are in your head until you begin to bring out that idea into intangible form.
Wow.
And at the moment you begin to bring that idea into a tangible form, for instance, you want to write a piece of music. If you had the inspiration, or through your dream, or in whatever means, you started to sing a song in your head, copyright will not protect that music in your head until you begin to write it down. It may be just the lyrics, it may be the notes, it may even be the tonic sofa.
Wow.
Or you pick your recorder and you start to produce the sound to put it down in the audio file. That's writing of lyrics, the notations, the tonic sofa, the audio file. The moment you start to bring it from your head into that mode, your copyright start to exist on that.
Wow.
So it is now left for you. The standard differs from country to country.
Country, of course.
And that's why in the WIPO treaty, it says that copyright registration is not compulsory.
Okay.
You understand? But in some other countries, they encourage authors to register their work. For instance, in US, you have what you call the Library of Congress.
Of course.
That's where they register all their works. You understand? So, in the case of Nigeria, we also encourage people to come and tell us that, yes,
You mean Nigerian Copyright Commission?
Yes,
Okay.
Nigerian Copyright Commission. According to the law,
Yeah.
we encourage you to bring your work forward, even though, like I explained earlier on, your copyright has started to exist. Immediately you put it out in that form. But we encourage you to bring it forward and deposit the work.
Okay.
Tell us about it that, okay, my name is Charles. I developed this work. I want you to know that it is my work. And you now, we encourage you to show proof of ownership. Even though at times there are issues
Yeah.
over proof of ownership. But basically, we encourage you to come forward. Something you can do online by going to copyright.gov.ng. You'll see the platform there where you can do everything online. And your work will be deposited in a database as established in the Copyright Act.
Okay.
You understand? In that database, your work, the title, the work itself will be noted. And you'll be issued, in quote, a certificate.
Oh.
That certificate now says that we have acknowledged your claim over this work. But onus still lies on you to prove if there's any contest on that work, for you to prove that you are the owner.
Wow. That's quite interesting. Okay, let's hear from you then. I have another perspective to this. No, more like a layer, 2 layers to it, but let's hear from you.
Yes, I just want to add to what Mr. Amudipe said. You see, why it becomes so important, because I picture myself as in the classroom. Important for you to interact with NCC about your work.
What's
It's just
NCC?
Nigerian Copyright Commission.
Okay, so
You see,
Because we have to, thank you
Yes.
for, because we
For
have the
Communication
other
Commission.
Exactly.
Nigerian Copyright
Exactly.
Commission.
Yeah.
You see, it is also, yes, your work must be in tangible form, but it also must be original. It must be your own creation. Now, should there be any legal tussle? Now, the issue now is that I created this work first. Bayo created this work first. Because that one must be proven in the court.
Yes.
That this is my work, stolen by. So if I have created this work and it's in my system, and somebody who had never met before, maybe one way or the other created, then the controversy will be difficult to establish.
Definitely.
But I've created this work. I've given Nigerian Copyright Commission a copy, so I can easily summon them, subpoena them to the court.
Definitely.
To establish that Bayo actually created this first before. So it's always very, very important that you drop some. In those days, historically, when you create a work, you post it to yourself. You know why? When you post it to yourself, because the postmaster will put a stamp on it. That will establish that this work has been in existence on the 16th of April. Then you put it somewhere. But these days, there are a lot of, because of technology and everything, why don't you just do the right thing? Drop it with the Copyright Commission, get your certificates, like Mr. The director has said, the certificate does not actually say you are the original. It just acknowledge that we are in custody of your work. The onus of
the
proving,
work you claim,
the work you claim, the onus of proving whether it is your work lies on you.
Wow.
On you. So it's very, I always tell myself, it's always advisable. Yes, it is my work. I conceived this work. I brought it from conception to reality. Now, why don't you get somebody who could stand as a witness? And this, the Nigerian Copyright Commission is established by law to put it there. So
maybe I should add this to paint a scenario that we can all relate with. There's this song called titled Ladugo.
Okay.
Sometimes, I can't remember the year now, on a Sunday morning, the composer, Adeyemi called me up. I said, Topsy, are you listening to this radio program? I said, yes. He said they are playing Ladugo there, and the presenter alluded that this song was done by so person. I said, no, it cannot be. So I said, okay, we'll look into it. And by the time we looked into it, we discovered that somebody actually took that song to a church in Ibadan.
Okay.
You understand? And because the song was scored, the original composition was done with orchestra and voice. But for easy accompaniment, somebody now reduced it to piano and voice. And unfortunately, that person now put his name. So if peradventure that person now decided to be the first to approach Nigerian Copyright Commission,
wow.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if he now decide to approach Nigerian Copyright Commission, that okay, this is my work.
And elder, you say has no.
But what we are saying in essence is now that work, the rough sheets, the score, or where you wrote,
Yeah.
those materials will now come in handy.
Oh.
Because like I said, you will have to, even if you have come to deposit it with us, in future, like the Bayo said, you will have to be able to prove ownership when the need arises. Okay, so now on a lighter note, I've just started encouraging my big bros B, to start bringing all his works together so that we can put it, and he's working hard on it.
Wow. Thank you so much. I think we are getting into that spot where we need to dig into complex issues, intersections around copyright, intellectual property terms, infringement here and there. But before moving on, I think there's something we also need to clarify. Both of you gave a kind of clear explanation of material that has to do with paperwork, more of paperwork. What about the recent development in media, social media? We have YouTube now, we have Twitter, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have Twitter. People are now doing 1 minute presentation of a whole, like something that used to be 1 hour. People can summarize them and they put their name. So what if someone picks up, let's say, a whole work and decide to do a kind of 1 minute reduction and put it, and the work is making way across social media? How do we tackle that in a copyright context?
You have mutilated another person's work, which is illegal. Yeah, it's a very sensitive thing. There are a lot of things going on social media that are just really done. Even mere copying your post. Some people will copy your post and put their name. It's actually wrong. Okay. It's wrong. And you see, the right available to the author also include right to determine what happened to his work. Okay. The mode you use it. I can give you the right. The copyright is not saying you shouldn't copy. It says you should copy with my permission. Okay. I can give you my work and say just sing it the way it is. Don't mutilate. Wow. If you mutilate, you are flattered. So all those people that would think they are smart, very common in music, they remove the text, but they retain the melody. And they put the new text there and put their name. I just laugh at what because if the part you remove is substantial to my composition, then you are liable. I don't care whether the text is you removed it from the church and you put shrine text. But if I'm able to put this melodic line, because music consists of more than text, this melodic line, in fact, orchestration is being copyrighted. If this melodic line belongs to me, I don't care the text, but you have mutilated my work, and it is my work, and I'm able to prove that this is what I did. That is why it is always very essential to establish that I did it first.
Can I say something, please? Recently, we have experienced series of issues around ownership. Dovetailing into the ideas of copyright. For instance, what if, as a composer or as a creator, I decide to employ artists to come and interpret particular works? I provide the technology. I provide the technology. I provide the recording gadget. I provide all the administrative process of that production. And I invite you, an expert, a fantastic pianist, or a player of indigenous instrument, and you featured and I paid you for that work. And after the production, I use the work, my company, whatever I want to use it for. And perhaps 2 years after, because of social media, everybody's trying to create content. You went back to that work because you have access to it, and you remove my own label and you put it on your Facebook page or your YouTube page or whatever page you have in the name of promoting your skill.
Okay, can we start this way?
Okay.
This program, this discussion,
Yeah.
if I may ask,
Yeah.
who owns the copyright?
The university.
University.
Are you sure?
Let's say
University.
Yeah.
The university cannot be an author.
Okay.
Are you getting me? If at all, at the end of the day, if we want to get the copyright owner of this, I think somebody will have to yield his right
Okay.
to this entity.
Okay.
Are you getting me? For instance, maybe I'm a journalist. I write for a newspaper A, and I have a column. After a few years, I want to move. Subject to my terms of employment, I may move that column with me to newspaper B, or I may not be able to move it.
Wow.
If my letter of employment says whatever you do while you are here, newspaper A owns the right. If I'm leaving to newspaper B, I will not be able to move that column.
That's because before the contract was executed, there's a written agreement.
Yes. So this is one of the biggest problems we have in our own client.
Contracts.
There's no contract. We tend to do everything based on relationship. Now, to direct it to what you actually say,
Yeah.
it is very incorrect. Dr. Bayo will still speak to it because he actually mentioned something earlier on. The word mutilation. You understand? It is very wrong. If I'm to look at the scenario you have just painted, for instance, you are seated here, you brought me and doctor here to come and speak. You have commissioned us for this. You have paid us, you've paid for our transport, you have paid for, if we are going, you may say, okay, please, can you have this? Or before we come, this is what you are coming to do. And these are this, these are this, these are this, these are this. And we are coming to speak. And at the end of the day, we go. Everything belongs to you.
Okay.
Sure. If you invite orchestra here and you commission doctor for them to perform, and you said, doctor, for this performance, can we negotiate? Doctor says, give me 20 million. And you arrive at 10 million and you pay him off. So every performance, whatever comes out of that performance, belongs to you.
To the manager, to the director.
To you. I'm
Yes,
using you
of
now.
course,
Yeah.
of course, yeah.
You
You are
understand?
not the
So
owner, but not the author.
you are the owner,
Yes.
the copyright owner. So as a performer, I have certain rights, but I can never claim authorship. Or to a certain level, the copyright ownership can change at any point in time. It can change. Tomorrow you can decide that project that you commission doctor for, you can decide that if I approach you, Ayo, please, can we just look at that? I am interested in having blah 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 blah, and I give you what you think is okay, and you are willing to let it go. The copyright will come to me,
Wow.
but your authorship remains with you forever, even in death. Are you getting me? So if anybody brings an organist to come and do a reciter, and at the end of the day, he pays you, and you now push the content to YouTube, and all of a sudden, like you said, see them removing credits or whatever,
and post it on their
and
own
post
social
on their
media
own
page.
platform. It is very wrong. It is very, very wrong. It's a criminal act.
What does that?
So far, I will always say this. So far, that action is bringing economic gain back to the person that did that act of infringement. It is called piracy.
Piracy.
You understand? Not the sea piracy, copyright piracy.
Copyright piracy.
So far, that action will be bringing economic gain or commercial gain back to you. So if, for instance, like you have said, that's work that is on YouTube, if it will attract money back to me, then it means that I have infringed on your right as the owner of that work.
Wow.
So let's so that doctor will act.
Wow. That's interesting though. So, well, sorry, just a moment, please. For those joining us, this is Organhouse Content and Seminar Series. The context for today is we call it cultural policy and management. And the discussion is centered around copyright law in Nigeria, particularly in music, art, and culture. Yes, we have Mr. Tokwe Charles Amudipe today, and we have Dr. Bayo. So, we are in the process. Please, if you have questions, kindly note your question. We'll get to a point where we'll open the floor for everyone to ask questions. And also, it's a dialogue. We are here every week, every Wednesday, so you can join us anytime. So today, kindly note your question and make sure you keep them. So we'll get to that section, and I will invite you to share your question or explanation. Thank you so much. Okay, Dr. Bayo.
Yeah, let me. Well, thank you, Mr. Anyway, you have been there. You see, I always have come across these issues, very similar issues, and what I always say is that copyright law should not be enforced in isolation. Because just now we have talked about contract law.
Yeah, of course.
We have briefly mentioned contract law. You see, when let's go to this specific example.
Yeah.
I brought you up. I gave you all what you wanted, what you demand. We reached an agreement to do a specific thing for me. I paid you. That comes under work for hire.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Work for hire. Now, it goes. The man goes away, does some other things with that thing, with the proceeds of that thing. Yeah. It's basically on the surface, it's illegal. But you see what I always advise that even while doing that, why don't you bring out a sheet of paper and state the terms of operation? Just a page of paper. That this work I'm paying you 50,000 naira. It is me.
Terms of
that is the
engagement.
owner terms.
Yeah.
It's always happen in our even place of employment.
Of course.
They employ you. Look, they employed you, for instance, as an August. I've handled that case before. And week in, week out, you continue to compose for them. But you did not venture to ask who is the owner of
this material.
This material. So if it is there, maybe a line or two in your contract that this is work for hire, whatever you do there belongs to the church or to that, you can't take it away. But we rarely read. We always do this Microsoft thing, just click and go ahead. Click and go ahead.
Yeah.
So issues because when you now take it to another church, you move from St. Peter's to St. John's.
Yeah.
And now they said, no, this is our own because we have paid you for it. And so people should make we get there. People are not really informed about this thing. People are not really informed that okay, this is my right, but let it be established. Because it is like the director said, it is based wrong. I have paid you. I've fed you, I've given you all what you requested for to provide a particular service for me, and you let that place, you now use it for your own advantage without my permission. Yeah, I mean,
there's one aspect that I mentioned in passing.
Yes.
You should note this. That person that did that performance still has certain rights. We call it neighboring rights.
Neighboring rights.
It's performance rights. You understand? But that does not mean he owns that work. If there are royalties that will accrue to the owner of the copyright, he has rights to ask.
understand. So it's very important. And like Doctor was mentioning now, unfortunately for us in this climate, we have not really come to terms to respecting the law the way we ought to. We base most of our things on relationship. It's my boy. Anything, if I just ask him to come, he will come. So what Doctor is saying now will be strange to some people. Say, you want me to sign paper for what? Recently I was querying Baba ABD. I don't know whether you remember him. Alexander Babatunde David, of African Church.
Okay.
Of recent, the family are trying to put some things in place to immortalize his name. So in the context of this, there are certain questions that are asked the children, which we are trying to assist them to put things in the right perspective, even though some people are coming up to explore that work, which there's nothing wrong in that, to preserve the man's works, but we have to do things the right way according to the law, so that at the end of the day it will not be difficult for us when we meet ourselves in this kind of situation.
Well, thank you so much. Another layer to that question, which I think we'll need to come back to, or we might organize another focus for, is now bringing it back home. As a musician working as a session man, a session man recording with recording with artists, recording with recording for a record label, and also as they use the word upcoming. I don't believe in that word anyway. and recording artists, recording for a particular record label, and before the contract or before the recording, the young artist wasn't too sure if this will blow, to use that term. And suddenly the person noticed that after the recording of this track, and something went viral. And we have had issues. I have experience of working with Nigerian music industry for years. I've seen issues working with record labels someday. This is a critical, very, very complicated, area. But we are bringing them out. We are digging out these issues, today, for us to create context work. Perhaps we'll come back to that anyway. So I'm just saying this to align with what you said earlier regarding bringing people to work for you, because I agree with you. Like you said, many content producer or creatives, to use it industry term, don't even know their own rights.
Yes.
They don't know. All they are after that moment is, I just want to sign that, I just want to get the money. They want to get the money. So, and we are going back to the ideas of value in cultural policy and management, and this is very important for development of a nation or any society. How we produce value in the arts is quite important. Again, thanks for this wonderful conversation. Let's go to the next one. We'll come back. Yes, we have discussed contemporary music, we discussed technology. What about folk song, folklore, folk instrument, traditional instruments? How do they come into the fore? Particularly, what about the use of folklore, music outside of its original context? Exploitation for commercial advantage outside of its original context. How do we deal with that?
Thank you, Dr. Oladele. You see, I think that is the most challenging for all Africans. The law is there. The act, the 2022 Act, expressively made provisions for it. But you see, how do we enforce this folklore thing? Is a challenge for Africans. You see, in this issue of copyright, somebody must come forward to claim. You cannot just sit there and say somebody, a face must be identified to the folklore, to the shape of the you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
And that has been a very serious issue in Africa. Look, who owns Ijala? Ijala is we know, but who comes forward to claim? Who lay claims to Ijala? Do you understand? So it's a big one in Africa, and I believe that some years ago I was reading somewhere where the Chinese have started mass producing adire. They have started mass producing adire, whatever, and they are bringing it forward. And we don't know who was, but have we come forward? Because you see, another thing about this corporate law is that we must, to reinforce our jurisprudence, we must put our law into test.
Thank you, sir.
It is not every time that we continue to change law. It is not, have you put it to test? Because the pronouncement of a judge is actually a law on its own. Have we come forward and to lay claim to those things? And that's a big challenge to Africa, because a lot of things are leaving Africa by the day, by the minute, that innately acts, but we're losing control. But have we stood up for it? Adire has gone. There was some years back, it was actually a shop in Europe, in England or wherever, that put the name Yoruba on that shop. Yoruba with sour name, and he put it, and he was trying to make profit from it, because that's the issue. I think there was an issue. I don't know where it ended. So the issue of folklore is a big challenge around this place. Who owns Ijala, Ekun, all those things that are primarily arts? Are we standing up for it? Then are we putting it? Are we really challenging our laws to get judgments? So that's all I have to say for now on the issue of folklore. But in terms of provisions of the law, the provision, I can read it in section 74 of the new expressly stated the right to do this, the right to do the right, so many rights.
Expression of folklore.
Implement
of expression
it's there, expressly. You understand? What are we doing with it? Do we even know? Do we even know that we have this right? Because you see, I once worked with a young musician who came for consultation, and I told him, I said, don't you know that this is your music? They said, Jekon privatize your man, Jekon popular.
That's rather unfortunate.
Jekon pirate, popular. It's very common.
Wow.
It's very common.
Maybe I will take it off from where
there.
Dr. Bayo landed now. It's quite disheartening when we see our people demeaning our culture, our folklore, and our rights, and some of these things. That bad culture that he just narrated now, of a young man saying that he should put his work.
Yeah.
I've seen that several times back in the day when we were still operating the physical space in Alaba, where you see a young, what they call them, or upcoming artist would take a very good track and said, okay, go and put it inside what they call selection.
Yeah, definitely.
So when we go out there and we enforce the law, we bring those people out, we arrest them, and we bring these young people to invite them. They will not show up. They say, leave them, Joe. How will my work be popular? Will be popular in the space.
Yeah.
And it's very unfortunate. And I think, like Doctor said, I agree with all he said about what the law provided. It's more than enough. The regulators will not come out to come and protect this. Because for me, as I'm seated here, I have about 8 areas, broad areas, that calls for my attention on a daily basis.
Wow.
That people will bring a petition, please look into this. Is it in the area of broadcast? Is it music? Is it audiovisual? Is it, people keep coming. So it is not for the regulators to start looking for means of protection. For instance, the Adire people, there was a time we were planning to move in there when we started noticing Chinese moving close to them there. We questioned it, why will you allow these people to come to this place? For what? Don't allow them to come in here and take this thing away from you. This was about
4 or 5 years ago. Now, what do we have?
Well, what I want to say now is, I want to take it back to Dr. Bayo, because in Nigeria, because let's put it in comparative, perspective. In Nigeria, the same way we have issues in Nigeria, other countries, as we have mentioned earlier, are also going through the same process. And I'm going to use, out of many, I'm going to use one case right now to explain my question to you. In South Africa, the idea of culture, folklore, musical instrument or documentation is not it's not just managed by South African music organization called SAMRO.
Mm-hmm.
SAMRO is a body. In Ghana we have GAMRO. So these are the bodies that are responsible for collection, copyright, management of creative work, like what Corporate Commission is doing in Nigeria. So this work is not left for them alone. There's what we call a kind of close collaboration and connection between the scholarly community and agencies like Corporate Commission, where scholars are not just working as a scholar. They are also their ultimate work is also what we call cultural activists. Part of their work is to produce knowledge, to document, but ultimately they are cultural activists. They are also working in the area of their research is informing policy. They are the one telling the body, go to this area, this is happening, this is what we have done, this is what we discovered. So we have this ongoing conversation. In Nigerian context, what is the scholarly community, the scholars, the research about Nigerian, let's talk about folklore, folk indigenous culture. What is the role of research in this process?
Okay, that's very important. Thank you, Dr. Ayo. You see, I don't know, the thing came to me in Yoruba, I'm looking for a way to ọ̀rọ̀ tó ṣe abọ́yadé gbogbo ọyọ ló ṣe. Whatever befalls this man, it is not limited to folklore, it is general to our academy. The gap between the town and the gown in Nigeria is so wide and unimaginable.
Wow.
We don't interact closely. The town does not know what the gown is doing. And that has been a big lacuna. We are not being productive. Yes, you see a lot of ideas in the university that are not transported. And the town are not actually ready to interact because I've asked some of them, because of what they call maybe the rigidity of our curriculum. Our curriculum in most cases are still reflective of the colonial ideas. We must begin to domicile some of those things. We must begin to sit down with this in our own context now, with these musicians, to know what they want, their problem. Let me tell you one thing. There was a musician that I worked with some few years back, and immediately got that thing that he headed to a radio station, and he stayed there for like 2 hours to give the producers so that they can start playing it. That is his own understanding. But when he came back to me, I said, do you know that radio station would not have even survived without your music? Because there's a specification in the law that establishes that they must play indigenous music. So if you realize that, you will know that they need you just like you need them. And he said, I said, so you don't know. So I don't blame them. I think it goes back to now good enough. We are discussing with NCC. We have been doing something. I'm not being particular in MTU, whereby we send our students for industrial passion. And I know one or two of my students have even written on NCC on piracy.
I think one of them
must have met you, because it just occurred to me that she cited you. So that kind of thing we need to do. There must be close, because you see, what is the relevance of this research if it's not applicable to your immediate environment? No, we cannot continue to talk about piracy in the works of the world. But how about the one on the one? How many interactions have we? How many workshops have we conducted with all these practitioners, the people in the industry? You see, we are even talking about the popular music, even about our people in art music, who are supposedly very knowledgeable. Do they protect their works? Are they aware that these are the things? When I was talking to one of my boys now, who plays the organ, fantastic organ, and I said, when you finish now, for that level, you go back to Ijebu and you start playing every wedding, you will do another composition, and they will come and give you one bowl of rice and 2 pieces of meat, and you think that is all. He said, but you know, it is your right, because you are that is the product of your intellect. You should have access to it. You should be able, I'm not even talking about, you should be able to determine how it is used, who uses it, and at what cost is it being used. So some of these things come to awareness. We must continue to talk to these people. I take the blame. The academy, we are doing our best, but because of the environment, we also need, I must confess, to rejig our curriculum.
Yes, I think that's the area I would also like to speak.
I must confess, we need to rejig our curriculum, because I don't know how many universities offer music business as a course.
Okay.
I don't know.
A follow-up question is, how many of them have in their curriculum the issue of intellectual property and copyright as it relates to the course
very
subject?
relevant.
Very relevant.
Well, I think that's the next question we have, something in that area. So the first one is, how can effective what are the consequences of copyright infringement? That's the first layer. And the second layer is, how do we promote general awareness, so knowledge about intellectual property law in Nigeria? And before your last statement, talking about music business, I think one thing we also need to understand is that there's a difference between music business and issues of copyright and arts music management. Yeah. Many people are doing music business. To go and play somewhere is a music business. Yeah, to play, pay me 20,000 to play this voluntary. That's a music business.
What music business comes as a cost.
Yeah.
Under music business, a lot of things come to play. Contract comes to play. Management comes to play. Management contract, a lot of things. But if you see, I'm even looking forward to having a degree, a first degree in music business that will encompass all this, because copyright could not be taught in a semester and you think you are okay. Do you understand? The issue of copyright, we are just paraphrasing. Go deeper than this. Because you just asked a question now, the consequence.
Yes.
A lot. Do you know you can even lose your right? The so-called right. And if somebody will just come and approve and say this and discover that you are not the original owner, and you just find yourself empty, you have been enjoyed process over the years, but somebody will just come and approve that this copy belongs to somebody that I know.
Let's begin to speak to some of these issues that you raised. First of all, let's look at the consequences. See, I think already in this climb, we are already being affected the consequences of not doing the right thing, not managing our rights the way we ought to. That's why in this climb we tend to abuse our rights without blinking. We talked about, you gave a scenario back then where somebody will go and remove labels and credits and push the other content to the social media there. So these are the issues. So when we decide to not to do the things according to the law, then the consequences will be that creativity will go down. See, whatever it is that is coming back to a creator, if it ceases, then that creator will not be encouraged to go further to create more. Because already the one he created is not enjoying any economic benefit. So how will he has invested so much? That's the issue of this piracy that we are talking about. The consequences is humongous. We're losing economic value, we are losing heritage value, we are losing cultural value. Just this morning as I was about stepping out, my wife showed me something on Facebook. You see white men dressed in agbada, dancing to our traditional drum, gongo and bembe. You know, so I was not saying, what do you think this is? These people are taking our culture away. But because we have decided that, okay, we want to do anything just to grab, then our creative industry will continue to go down. Then, until we also decide that it is no longer right for us to pick somebody's music to perform it. When I was in Akwa Ibom, I challenged an artist, a popular gospel artist. He came in, he was invited for a program, and he was on stage for 45 minutes. And within that period, he only sang his own song for about 10 to 15 minutes. While on stage, the rest of the time, he performed about people's work. So when he finished, the guy was introduced to me. I greeted him. I said, "Come, do you know that you don't have rights?" I said, "Were you paid for coming to perform?" He said, "Yes." I said, "So why do you have to go on performing other people's works?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm sorry. It's like you don't have understanding. I have to educate him." But it's like a norm in our climb here. It's like a norm. You see people, they have been contracted, they have been commissioned to come and perform. You see them singing other people's songs. You see people publishing a work, before you know it, if you put it on sale, nobody will want to buy it already. All we want to do is to get a copy. I belong to some platforms. Can you share? If you have this, can you share with me? If you have this, can you share? You know, can you share this? And we'll photocopy.
Yeah. I think that's the next.
Sorry,
okay.
let me. This consequence. I want to read something now. This is a report, a very recent report of IFPI, that is International Federation of Phonographic Industry.
Yeah.
Said
in charge of music.
Yes, in charge of music industry. It said sub-Saharan Africa, they were just giving a report, had the highest growth in streaming out of all regions. I paraphrased. Interestingly, while Nigerian music industry is the largest in the continent, which is the largest in the continent, consistently churning out global hits, South Africa, which is the second largest in terms of output, has remained the most profitable music market in Africa. Why? South Africa has a more structural industry. That enjoys copy, they respect copyright. You see? So we are just our own case is just like activity without productivity. And that's a consequence of all these things we're saying. When people will voluntarily take their work for copy, when people do not even know when their work is being copied.
Then the point is, how do we promote awareness?
Yes, that's what we say. We must. This is one of the things, awareness. But you see, there must be. I think the Nigerian Orientation Agency. If you know what the proceeds that can accrue to the country via entertainment, then institutions like the Nigerian Orientation Agencies must stand up to work. Because you see, give it to some of these people, director will know that they are not actually aware. A popular case is Two-Face and Blackface. Two-Face said, Blackface said he owns African, he was the one that wrote African Queen and gave it to Two-Face. But this one said, when you wrote it, I gave you some money.
Yeah, something we discussed earlier.
Yeah, it's some money now. But the truth is that did he actually know what he was doing when he was doing that? So when the music now becomes it, you now want to assert your right. So there must be, and unfortunately, should I say unfortunately, the technology has come with a lot of rules and has taken a lot of things. Because in the past, P-Man played a role to galvanize this artist. Do you understand what I'm saying? P-Man recording company played role to galvanize them so that we can reach them. Now artists, I'm not very sure how viral they are, the organization, because in the comfort of your room, you can upload your music, get your produce, and run your life. So if we're able to, and it is not like that even in America, they are still able to galvanize themselves, because we must continue to reach them.
How do we reach them? What is the role of educational institutions? What is the role of media? What is the role
That's
of
what I'm saying. That's what.
I think to help doctor.
Yes.
See, advocacy.
Mhm.
Like you mentioned earlier, this discussion, I don't know how far it will go,
Mm.
but I'm sure it will go far. I'm sure today, people out there that will have opportunity to listen or to see this discussion later on will be able to pick one or two things. So for educational institutions, I don't think they will have a major role to play as far as enlightening the public.
Mm.
It's the environment is for them to go into research and
Make it available.
Make it available for people. So when they make it available, how do we make use of it?
Mhm.
So that's where our orientation agencies now come in. The media, that's how they come in. Because you even find out that some of these media houses, they are culpable.
Mm.
You see?
Yeah.
You understand? Some of these media houses, they are
Culpable.
culpable.
So how would they support
How
you?
do they support all these things? So see, like Doctor said earlier, and I want to emphasize it, until we begin to challenge this law. I told somebody sometimes, like I said, Nigeria has one of the best copyright law in the world,
Honestly.
but we have not tested this law.
Mm.
We just
We have
complain.
not
We sit down to
tested this
complain.
law. For instance, that gospel artist that came to sing other people's song on stage, whereas he has been paid to come and perform, he was invited because the church realized that, okay, they have listened to his performance, they love his tracks, they love his work, and he was invited. Now you came, you are now performing other people's work. Now, how do we test the law? Let's another artist that his work was used illegally without permission come up, sir,
This is my work.
this is my work. If you don't do the needful, you meet me in court. Let's go and test the law.
We just complain, or is that we don't know? Even when we know, we sit down to complain, lament, blame government. We
So
are
there's
used to
little
that.
government. So if you bring if that artist comes to me and says, sir, so artist A, this is what happened, okay, we'll take it up. We investigate and we'll charge it to court. And the law gives you the right for Nigerian Copyright Commission to charge you criminally, and you as a right owner to go civil and go and claim your damages there.
Mm.
Whereas the criminal prosecution that Nigerian Copyright Commission will take up will not bring anything to the right owner. Rather, you will just get convicted or fined or both. Whereas if you go civil as a right owner, there you can claim damages, and whatever the court awards will come back to you as compensation.
Wow.
Let me sorry, doctor. You see, there was a case. A young guy in my church or somewhere came to me and he said, one radio station is playing his music, and he did not authorize them, and no collection agents. And I said, come, are you sure? He said, yes. Okay.
Does
The
it
first
belong
thing
this
belong
man
to you? He said,
CMO?
yeah.
Does it belong
to any collection organization? I'm not very sure. I said, okay, the first thing you do Monday morning, let us go and seek injunction. Let them to first stop. He said, if I see this thing, they will not play, they will ban my music. And I just because you see what you need to do in that, they just put a momentary stop to that act.
Ignorance.
Then you cannot proceed. After some days, they cannot proceed. He said no, that he doesn't want to wala. It's not wala. It is your right.
It is your right.
It's your right. You see, lastly, we must begin to see music. I think this thing it dovetails from our traditional thing. Music at the traditional level then was not seen as a business.
Of course.
It was a craft. The same music man would be the farmer, so it was never seen as something that could sustain the family.
But back then, doctor, at the early stage of your remark, you made mention of our musicians giving credit.
Yes.
In the past, at those early stage, there were no infringements.
Yeah, of course.
So
They
will not go and pick Ebenezer Obey or
Obey,
Laia will go and pick Rex Luxon's work. Not at all.
There was dignity, that there was mutual
I
respect.
think there's an interesting case here, which I think we need to quickly move to. Now, we have a lot of we have ideas on the table that we need to really bring together and because we need to get to our colleagues online. They have questions, they have perspectives, they have things they want to ask. Of
Sorry
course.
if we have neglected them.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
think, you see, like I said, 1 or 2 semesters
The
course in intellectual property in the university is not enough. Just like this is not
okay.
enough.
I think now the point you mentioned, I'm going to start from here. Then we're going to quickly go back to our. We've touched upon we've discussed most of the important issues, including digital technology, AI, sampling. Okay, so friends online, shortly I will get to you. Get your questions ready, get your perspective ready. But few things in this Nigerian music industry, there are issues here that we have touched upon, including documentation, musician, royalties issue. I'm sure issue of Kozon is there, of course.
Yeah.
That's another big
Yeah.
elephant here in the room, which we are definitely going to organize another session of this panel, bringing into conversation issues of rights collection. Now, to start with, between 1940s and 1970s, as we all know, Nigeria operates a different music industry. From the 1980s, particularly 1984, 85, SAP, Structural Adjustment Plan program affected all aspects of culture, music, art, and heritage industry. And since then, things are taking a new turn. Yeah, but before this particular time, I can guarantee you that there are research, there are what have been done in terms of documentation that are still available now. Proper documentation, proper policy, issues around policy. And as we all know also, Nigeria was one of the biggest in terms of music production in the 1970s, the oil boom era. Not only in popular music, also in classical, traditional exploitations. But the question is, Nigeria has documentation. There are documentations here and there. Researchers are doing this every day. But the question is, are these works available? Who are the musicians that has been documented? That's on the one hand. The other one is issues of rights. In the last 20 years, I work in the industry, and many of us, of course, there are issues of trusts that is actually affecting the industry. Musicians are not even relying on Kozon anymore. There's huge tension between record labels and their artists. Many artists are taking laws into their hand. Record labels are, there are issues, very complicated ones indeed. So the question is, we need a collective conversation like this to come to the board, because the reality is that no one body has the solution. Nigeria is an interesting space. Like the Wale Adebanwis have said, Nigeria is a country, a nation in crisis of rule. That rule is not about leadership. It's also about people, like what we said earlier. How followership, how people themselves portray themselves, survivor of the fittest. So I don't think there's one solution to it. And one of the processes is what we are doing. I am sure others are doing the same across board. The question is, we need to bring these ideas together, to come together in a conversation like this and negotiate processes, for this kind of ideas. So I'm going to open it up to us now and discuss these issues further. Today we have explored how to register your work. We have explored issues of when you bring somebody to work for you and they later take the work on their own personal, what is the consequence? We have explored that. That is not good according to the explanation today. Then also, we have also explored issues relating to technology, new advancement in technology, folk song, folklore, issues around policy, copyright law on this issue. We have explored all this. At this moment, I'd like to invite you. Kindly raise your hand, then I will invite you to ask your question or provide your perspective. Thanks so much.